So we're just going to jump right in, right?
We're just going to jump right in.
All right, so if you could introduce our guests today.
Okay. So this is Desria Seay.
Yes.
She is one of our newer...
Or Des.
Des, yeah. One of our newer members at the church. Mm-hmm. Have you actually signed a membership book?
No, I haven't. I should probably sign that, shouldn't
I?
I committed, last...
Well, Reverend Don actually made a mention of that during his sermon this week about about people taking years and years and years to sign a membership book. Yeah.
So, I should probably get on that.
Ooh, it was Susan B. Anthony.
Susan B. Anthony.
That's right. She attended a UU church for 40 years.
41 years.
Wow.
It was 40 or 41 years.
And then didn't sign the book.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, trying to get my Susan on, I guess. No, I'm going to go sign it. I'll go sign it.
So, how long have you been coming? I mean, we already know this, but
okay, for the viewers out there. So I had came here 2015, 2016 to visit a couple times, and at that time, season of our life, we just weren't really, this isn't what we needed at the time. So we moved away, lived in Hawaii for a few years, and then moved back. And as time went on, I was like, I really need a sense of community, a sense of fellowship with other people with similar beliefs and value systems as ours. And so I was like, let me check out that UU church again. And so I came back and it felt right. Everything felt good. And okay, now it's more conducive to our family because I have 3 kids and I'm married. And so I really wanted something where there was going to be lots of young adults and children and vibrant. And right now I'm just feeling very vibrant and, elevated here. So decided to be a member.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
And what's your spiritual religious background?
I guess spiritual religious background. I was a Christian for many years. Turned atheist now, kind of more. I don't like the word agnostic because I'm more atheist than agnostic, but I'm kind of there could be some higher powers out there, but not in a traditional sense. So there we go. Kind of mostly atheist, kind of agnostic.
So as a fellow atheist, how did you come to your atheism? Because I find that a lot of people, you've got kind of 2 camps. You've got the empirical, scientific, atheists, and that's usually that. I mean, I would define myself as that. And then you have the spiritual. So they see things going on in the world, and they're just like, oh my gosh, there's no way that a loving God could allow.
I guess I'm kind of more on that camp, but I have always tell people the backstory of I first started questioning Christianity over the story of Jacob. And the reason why Jacob and Esau, for those who maybe not know the backstory, Jacob was basically, in my opinion, rewarded for being a butt. Okay, so he wasn't kind. He stole from his brother. He took his birthright. And I was I remember I was in 8th grade. I'll never forget it. And I was like, man, that's kind of, I don't like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, why did he get rewarded for something he shouldn't have been rewarded for? So it kind of started there. That was probably my first questioning where I was like, God got it wrong there, And then as time went on, just watching documentaries and reading different books. And then, it was just it's unrealistic was what it was. I was like, this doesn't make logical sense to me. It was very, started off then I start piecing together. I was like, how could God get it wrong with slavery? I was like, how do you tell a person how to enslave a person by saying, be kind to your slaves? Why not just say, don't have slaves? How can you get it wrong with how you treat women? Hey, you can own women. You can have many wives. How do you get it wrong? How does mankind eventually get it right and you got it wrong if you're all knowing and all powerful? So that was kind of just piecing, taking apart different, ethical reasosoning in the Bible. I was just like, no, that's wrong. You shouldn't have did that. That's not right. And then eventually I came to a place where if there is a God, I don't want to worship you. So that was
if there is a God and that was the God,
and that's the God,
right.
You don't want to worship.
I don't worship. Yeah, it's like you don't align with what I feel is right.
And I think the issue with a lot of religions is that if you believe in it, you have to believe in all of it.
All of it.
Right.
And instead of like where I have come to a place is where there is wisdom and truth in just about anything and many religions. And so that's where I guess me more coming, I say a slight sprinkling of agnostic is like being able to take the wisdom and truth from the Bible or from the Quran or from the Torah, like anything, and be able to take that out, take the meat, leave the bones. Yeah. And so
it's the life affirming parts of it.
Yes.
That seem easier to swallow.
Yes. Yeah. And not just even easier, like inspirational. Like I can come from listening to a good sermon on a portion of a different, religious book and be like, yes, I'm going to apply that to my daily life now, So, being able to take the meat and leave the bones on those.
Yeah, so. I love it. I love that.
Yeah.
So, obviously, you feel comfortable coming here and sharing that.
Yes.
Now, why not go to another church and kind of, like, this is how I believe, but the sense of community. I mean, because we all know here, demographically,
yes,
the Augusta Unitarian Universalist Church does not necessarily match people currently sitting in this room.
Right. I guess the main thing was, because I tried going back to church, like a different church, like church, for those reasons, community, fellowship, somewhere for the kids, and everything, my husband and everything. And especially because we're not from here. So church is a good tool in getting to know the community and helping the community, giving back. So, but I just couldn't get past the malarkey, in my opinion. Like, the sermon would go and I'm like, that's not true. Yeah. That's not true. And I was just like, if you want to insult my intelligence by saying that Jonah was swallowed by a whale, like, it's stuff like that where it's just like, I can't sit through this. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I can't sit through this. I can't, there's too much bones, I guess, in my analogy. And it's just like, I'm not getting enough of what I need for me to rectify coming and getting up every Sunday morning.
Do you feel any level of sadness when you go to churches like that anymore? Like when you hear those sermons? Because for me, I hear a lot of, the sermons that my mother listens to, and I feel a little sad that it's the same now as it was when she was younger. Like she's hearing the same information. Because
I was a Sunday school teacher. Me and my husband were youth pastors. Like when I say I went to church, I went to church. Now it's probably mostly infuriating. Like honestly, because I'm like, this is so not
I try not
true.
to get mad.
Yeah, like I walk out now like, you are doing more harm than good to these people.
Right.
Because at the same time, if there was like a huge investment in community, like I saw you really out, helping the homeless, the poor, the single. What I see is you all just going up here to spouting bull. And it's like nothing good is coming from this. Nothing good.
Right.
So like I get more infuriated by it, honestly, than sad. Because I'm like, people will have legit problems and that need real answers and real solutions and science behind it. And I'm like, you're giving them, placebos.
Yeah.
Nothing. Yeah. Exactly. So
it's interesting to me because the Richmond County, Augusta area has this really bizarre, I mean not bizarre, but a very stark wealth inequality.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you go down to like just downtown Harrisburg, right around, even right across the border of Beach Island versus right over here in Walton Way, you've got mansions over on Walton Way, and then go down to Crawford or Eve or MLK, and you've got folks literally selling crack.
Oh yeah.
On the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it has been curious to me what the other churches have done, and the UU now is starting to try and get more involved because, they are getting that new blood. Folks like you, myself, Elena, the other newer members coming in. What role do you see yourself playing in that?
That's a good question. Because currently I work for the Y, and it's in a homeschool, as we'll get on to in a little bit. And so a lot of that is taking up a lot of my time. But I do foresee me probably spearheading something more with young families. Because I'm really into marriage and children. And as far as being someone, being an example and then helping others who want to have that type of relationship and that support.
Yes.
Big on support, just because I know for me and my husband, the best times in our marriage is always when we have fellow young families around us, or we're all coming together, and getting through that. And I really feel like that's something community needs family. That's all community is families, groups of families. And so I would love to be able to talk to other young women, my husband with young men and everything, as far as, helping the family, get together, you know what I'm saying, and really come together and in a positive way. So that would be probably where my focus would mostly be.
I could see you in a mentoring role.
Yeah, that's what I would love to do. That type of, bring people by the house and let's eat, let's fellowship, and let's talk and really get to the meat of common day issues that we're all facing. Yeah. And let's work on that together.
I think that's what's really great about UU is that we do a lot of talking about what's happening right now. So I think we all have so many opinions kind of coming at us, and we agree to disagree a lot of the time. But it's important to get those views, because your view is not the only view.
Oh yeah.
All right. And it's not constantly looking back.
Oh
yeah, exactly. It's looking forward to answer solutions.
Maintaining that that type of relevance for what's going on now. I remember a couple of sermons ago they were talking about the UU Church in Chicago, and there was that weird, they're like, oh man, they've got the segregation stuff going on in the country. How are we going to address this? And they just made the changes that they needed to make. Obviously they had the committee process, but it wasn't, there was no dogma holding them back.
Yes.
Making the changes that they needed to. Yeah. Now, obviously from, a 20th century perspective, it still might seem a little slow, but compared to the average, the average church, changes come a little bit quicker.
Oh yeah.
So you did mention homeschooling.
Yes.
Now, in my experience, I have never known an atheist, secular type person to homeschool. They've always been really fundamentalist, conservative. Either Christian or Jewish, usually Orthodox folks. So why did you make that decision?
That's a good question.
And did you do that after moving to Richmond County, or was
yes. Actually, yes. Now that you say that.
Not surprised.
Wow.
Actually, we live in...
Please say why.
Well, we live in Columbia County. So, and we lived in Columbia... The good schools. We lived in Columbia County prior to moving to Hawaii, and when we moved back to Columbia County. It started off with my eldest. She's 15. It started off. She is a very inquisitive kid, who's also busy. When she was in kindergarten, first grade, she was the one the teacher would give her a busy ball or, fidgets and stuff like that, because her mind's always working, but at the same time, her body's working too. And so that was the first little inkling, maybe a traditional sit down type desk and lecture at the top, and you're sitting there with 20 other kids is not going to be the best way she learns. She always make great grades. The teachers love her because she's one who's constantly asking questions. She's always involved in the classroom discussion, but she also needs to move. So, and so as time went on, she was doing good, probably doing great by most standards, but I felt like she could do more. And I felt like she would do more just given if the reins were taken off of her. So, she actually, the last year was 4th grade. And I finally decided I was going to jump into it because not only did I have that in the back of my mind, but also the fact that she was being taught by mostly white women and mostly white schools. And my child is Black. And I wanted her also to have a background in U.S. history from the African American perspective. So those two things, because yes, you may be able to, I know sometimes they sit in busy, like the bouncy balls nowadays, and they have little tools and everything. Maybe we can kind of band-aid the fact that you need to move, but they're not doing anything being intentional with making education come from an African American perspective, because cultural does mean a lot in education.
Right.
It
does.
Yeah, so that's where we started, with me wanting her to have a background with all subjects, not just history, from English and math, like letting her know Black scientists and Black mathematicians and Black poets and Black authors. So that's where we merged together. So fast forward, took her out, started Black homeschooling group here in Augusta.
So, is your homeschooling group Black people?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
Yeah. It's not. We don't meet anymore. A good question. We met for the 2.5 years that we were here, and then when I went to Hawaii, I started another Black homeschooling group. Once I got back, I just didn't want to run a homeschool group anymore. I had ran a homeschool group for 5 years, and I was like, my kid's in high school now, and I need to mentally focus more on my child as opposed to my child and everybody else's child too.
Right.
So anyway, so fast forward to that, and right now I don't have a homeschooling group, but I just started a new programming through where I work at, where for more homeschooling.
That's another thing too. I'm not used to a lot of Black people homeschooling.
Yeah, I'm a purple unicorn with polka dots.
Yeah.
I'm a Black
atheist homeschooler. Yeah, that's.
Oh, because I don't have small kids, I'm totally unaware that even exists.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of people in my life who would benefit very much from something like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's good to know.
Yeah. We've enjoyed it. I have 3 kids. So with her, she's been my guinea pig. But as she knows, I tell her that I've apologized. I'm not. I guess
first
I'm more, always
is.
Yeah, I'm a progressive parent. I was like, you know what? I messed up on that. Won't do that again. And she's cool. Because I'll be like, messed up on that. And she's like, yep, Mom. I'm like, all right, you ain't gotta.
At least she acknowledges it.
You ain't gotta rub my face in it. Come on, let's move on. But yeah, I have a 7 and 9-year-old as well, and all 3 of my kids, I can justify, I can give you exact reasons why all 3 of them need to be homeschooled, because I think homeschooling should be individual to the child. Because right now we're in a place of whether my middle child, my 9-year-old, would do better at an art school, because she's really talented and interested in theater and music, and I'm like, I'm trying to put those, because she's in after school stuff that she does with theater and singing,
right.
and private coach. But I really feel like if she went to an art school,
what's
so
the name of that?
Davidson.
No, there's a downtown. Oh man, I can't remember the name. It's an after school program.
Oh, Jesse Norman.
Thank you.
My oldest went. Yeah,
okay.
she went.
You're so tuned in.
Yeah, yeah. People ask me, but anyway, my oldest went. But it's kind of far if you we live.
Oh yeah, you live in Columbia.
Yeah, we live in Columbia.
Me, it's 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I'm like, it's a little far, because even the one we go to is in Martinez, and that's 20 minutes from our house. So, but anyway, yeah. So, but yeah. So I say that it is individual. My youngest is a boy. Schools are just not best, it seems like, for boys, period, and even worse so for Black boys, and even worse so when you have a kid who's incredibly intelligent, but also, if I thought my oldest was busy, my youngest runs circles around her. So
I'm dealing
that
with that
energy.
Yeah, it's just
misinterpreted.
Exactly. In which people who are very advanced in teaching will they look at my son real quick, and they're like, That's no. Exact opposite. The ones who are actually really good, see, that's the next level intelligence. Yeah. They're like, that's the kid.
I'm glad that
they're
aware of that.
Exactly. But if I have a person who's a teacher because it's a good job,
then they want to label with the
food
ADHD.
Because they're exactly. So I was like, nah, he probably. I mean, we'll see what seasons, but.
I'm about to beta test.
Okay.
Because of the coronavirus.
Yeah.
We're out of school, and I'm gonna have my 2 eldest. I'll try because they're close enough. I can do a semi combo between the 2 of them.
Yes. Yeah.
So and I have all boys.
Okay. Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
So I'll get to see how they interact. Because after talking to you and thinking about it, it's something I've been considering myself. But it's interesting you made all those points about black. You obviously are black. Your children are black. You were running a black homeschooling group, but again, considering the demographics of the church, you were completely comfortable coming here. And
I was comfortable after seeing that there were so many black people who are now coming. Like you remember I might have joked with you. Yeah. I was like, I'm not comfortable being the first.
Oh yeah, when I came, it was a little off-putting.
Yeah, and that's that's some of why we didn't stay. I was like, I'm not in a season in my life where I want to be the first anymore. I've been that, but I'm like now that's not what I need. That's not what I can be comfortable with anymore. So I was like, but once I can be the fourth. You know what I'm saying? Because I can be the fourth, I can be the fifth. You know what I'm saying? Like, because at that point, it's like I can bring more. I'm cool with that, but I need a safe space. I need a safe space, like where it's like I can't be always the representative. Like I was that kid growing up. Always the only one in the class. The gifted or whatnot. I can't be that person anymore.
I think because I had a very similar experience. Yeah. I think it's different for black women too, because when you're, at least we're about the same age. So when we were growing up, if there was a black person who was famous or cool, it was like a male celebrity.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and when it comes to like interracial relations, like it's. At least from my age, like it was always like a dude talking about. Oh, it was always cool to talk about his black friend. I rarely saw girls be like, "Yeah, I have this black friend. Her name is so and so." And so for me, growing up, it was fairly easy. I thought it was cool. I was like, there was 2 of us out of a school of like 600, and everyone wanted to be our friend and hang out and blah 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 blah. But your experience is probably.
Well, no, actually, I was usually the only black girl with a bunch of white friends. No, very, very similar experience. But it was just as an adult, I saw all the trauma that came from that. Like the fact that I couldn't identify with like black. Yeah, it was just like completely, where I had some self-hate to get through.
Yeah.
That I couldn't raise 3 black kids who valued and loved themselves when they looked in the mirror until I got through that. So some of that has been like having to learn, that why is it, because I went through this thing, let me back up, as a kid where I believed that something was wrong with us. Because it was like, why aren't we presidents? Why aren't we doctors? Why aren't we business owners? There must be something wrong with us because I wasn't taught the history behind it. And most people aren't taught the history of redlining and segregation. Like you learn about segregation, but not all the effects and how it all permeates and Jim Crow and all of those things.
Selective information.
Exactly. Yeah. So once I learned it, that was, homeschooling. Here I come. Like the, reason why I decided homeschool, because I wanted my kids to know it wasn't because of lack of knowledge. It's because of lack of access.
Right.
And I say that, I preach that a lot in my school, like with my kids. I'm like, remember, we're not involved in that because we can't. It's because of lack of access. Black people can't swim, not because of knowledge, but because we were lack of access. We didn't have pools.
Right. You got to think about like Run into a Jamaican. Jamaicans know how to swim.
Oh yeah, and my kids know how to swim. They're on a swim team. But they just having to learn those things and teach them that anything. If you look back, it wasn't because they were the first who were able to do it. They were first who were allowed to do it. Like there was 20,000 behind them that could have done it had they had access.
Right.
So I had to learn all of that in order to love myself, because at the time I had some self-hate issues. Like, yeah, black people would just do this, that, and the third, then they could be like everybody else. And it was like, nah, like there's a reason why they're the first. There's a reason why there was one black doctor in your town. It's not because you didn't have brothers and sisters who were smart enough to do it. It's because of lack of access.
Right.
So that was a big reason. It's, homeschooling was to give my kids, because my kids can tell you, especially my oldest, like they have some self-love. I'm like, man, I wish I had that when I was your age. Like, I kind of pat my own self on the back, but at the same time, I'm like, wow, to grow up black and proud, like, wow, like, what are you going to look like as an adult? Not having to go through that trauma. That self-examination, because your background is going to be completely different from mine.
So are you not worried about socialization?
Oh, they get plenty. I just told you they in their swim team, they get after school theater, they get homeschool PE they go to twice a week. Like they have homeschool groups, they come to church now, every They go to play dates. We have regular, thankfully for Facebook. Facebook makes it where it's like easy for everybody to just meet up together. But like I just told you, I ran a homeschool co-op. Like they literally saw people their friends once, twice a week. We go on field trips every Friday. We meet up for class where we would teach them different subjects, enrichment subjects, what we call it, art, music, literature, poetry, history, regularly. Like this is, and they have a homeschool science class they go to once a week at Reed Creek. They go to Aiken's Ruth Patrick Science Center once a month. Like they're always around children. Like,
so it does sound like you're like trying to create a very rounded child.
Yes.
Not just an intelligent one, but one that has their hands in culture and other areas as well, which is good. I worry about sometimes, like when I think about homeschool, I think about kids who are just constantly in a book and they're not really getting outside of their homes. And your definition of homeschool seems to be like the world is your school.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
That's beautiful.
I'm going to have to steal a lot from you the next couple of weeks. With this Corona stuff.
Steal, I guess this is your time. You can have it. But no, it's something. It was a goal of ours, me and my husband's. Like when we first had a kid, like. We don't want, me and my husband, we grew up together. So we have a very similar childhood. And so we were like, this is what we want for our kids, even before we had our first one. So
that's fantastic.
It's trying to be very intentional about the way we do things.
So from a religious and spiritual standpoint, how do you instruct your kids with that? Because I know when I was, growing up, I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. So it's pretty, I just went to the meetings 3 days a week, and my mom, she was hands-on, but, everything was coming from, as a, an atheist who's also a person of color, it's black, it's harder to find, voices who you can, like, draw from, and, especially if you're trying to say, it's like, hey, mommy and daddy, we're secular. And then if you're looking for secular voices, it's all white folks. So what have you done to shape that for your children?
It hasn't, honestly. Being secular wasn't like a big huge thing in our thing, because the majority of people, especially when we were in Hawaii, the majority of our homeschool group was secular. They were black. We was like the group of purple, because it was like we had one religious family. And the rest of the 12 of us, like the other 11, it was 12 families, were spiritual or atheist or like, I guess where you're a Christian, but you never go to church, like, type situation. But the vast majority were non-religious. So it just, more of our core has been enrichment studies, make them well-rounded, and African American. Just like my kids are atheists. Like they're just, what their mom and dad is, just like most, kids are, And so it was something because my youngest was starting to question more. And not, he wanted, because he was getting to be an angry atheist. Like he would hear, kids talking about God, and they're like, God ain't real. And I'm like, whoa. Like, what I'm saying? And so I was like, especially we moved back here, and I was like, in Hawaii.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, it's not even like not okay. It's like in Hawaii, nobody cared where you went to church at. That just wasn't a thing. Like you lived your life, and church was like the last thing on anybody's mind. Right. So he never had to be like, God ain't real, type deal. But he got here, and it was like, oh, yes, I go to the church. And then I was like, oh. And he was also very interested in, like, Thor or Merino religion, or he'd be, like, want to know Roman religion. He liked the gods and stuff. So that was, Elijah, I tell people, is what made me, like, a big reason of coming here, too. Because I was like, he needs a religious education in all of it because he's interested in all of it. Like, and so it was funny because he was like, yeah, I worship Odin and Thor and the old gods. Like,
that's just the coolest thing.
It is. I mean, he's 7, so it was like, oh, okay, we need to kind of probably like get you some of that. And that was something that, if a kid shows interest in my family, like I try to find it. But that was something I was like, okay, I have nowhere else to go but go back to church. Like, here we go. Like, I'd been saying I wanted community, wanted fellowship. Maybe this is that voice saying, hey, why don't you try that UU church again? So, and it's been really good for him. Oh my goodness. And, just like we just got started coming back, but it's the 2 the Sunday schools he's been to. It's been really good for him.
Yeah, was it Mindy and...
Mindy's fantastic. She homeschools as well. So.
She does? I have to talk to her about that,
yes, and we started with Navigators. Navigators
that was really huge.
Yes.
I'm not even going to lie. I was hoping it'd be not a lot fewer, but just like a little fewer people, but no, there was like 50 people there.
There's a huge need for it because like I had been wanting to put both of my younger 2 in Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and it was like I couldn't get past. Like I told you, like I can't sit in the sermons anymore and listen to it, and it was like
it gets awkward when people make assumptions about what
your
beliefs
yes,
are.
exactly. And then I have to.
Well, it's like when God says blah blah blah.
Yes, and I have to do that number, and I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. I guess the same way I don't want to like do that with being Black. I don't want to do that with being an atheist anymore. I just want to go where I'm comfortable. Like,
so what do you do in a social situation when someone wants to talk about religion?
I talk about religion in the whatever they're saying sits, and then when they ask my opinion, that's when I'm like, well, I'm an atheist, and because you do need to kind of give that background knowledge because
sort of ease them into it.
But it's like I'll listen to you until you ask me like my end, like what's my opinion.
They want
like,
you,
because
I want you to declare yourself
exactly, and because I don't feel like you always have to be like jump from jump start saying I'm an atheist. I feel like sometimes just sit there and listen. Because sometimes I just want to talk, and I'm just like, I don't know you well enough to be letting you know my background and stuff.
And I think sometimes when you hit people with the A word, like,
oh yeah, and especially
immediately.
And I'm worried about it with my kids, especially here in the South, because like I didn't want people to be like, well, you can't play with them because those are heathens over here. Exactly. Exactly. And I'm just like, so I used to like volunteer in Hawaii. It was very nice to just be like, yeah, atheist. And they'd be like, yeah, me too. And it's like, ooh, but here I don't volunteer. I'm going to be completely honest. When somebody starts talking in a conversation, I listen until they ask my opinion. I'm like, boom, there, you asked my opinion, here it goes. So then that's when I volunteer. Yeah.
Well, Desria, I think that covers a pretty broad base. I
It
appreciate you
does.
coming out
Thank
this
you so
morning.
much for being here.
I appreciate
I feel like
y'all
I've
inviting
learned
me.
so much. I didn't even have small children.
Oh, well,
I'm
good,
so
good,
excited for
good.
you to be here.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here.